everyone, this is Mindy Egan and welcome back to another Lawn Fawn video. Today I'm going to be creating a tropical center picture window card. I'm going to start off by doing some Copic coloring. So I have my images already pre-stamped on the Lawn Fawn 80-pound white cardstock, and I stamped them in jet black ink because it's Copic friendly. And for the images, I am using Toucan Do It, All the Clouds, Oh Gnome, and Wild for You. So starting with my Jaguar here, I am using E57, 55, 53, and 51 for the body. And I do color it twice just to make sure that those darker colors really blend together. And then for the spots, I have E27 and E23. For the toucan, I am going to use N8, N6, and N4. And once I finish this one, I'm going to move right on over to the other toucan I have stamped here and just get the body colored for that one right away as well. And then I'll go back to my first one and do the beak and the feet. So normally I color them orange, but I decided to go with yellow for this one this time. And that one was a Y19 and Y13. And then I did a little bit of BG000 for the eyes. Then I have my branch here that I just used E27, 23, and 21. I have my mushrooms from Oh Gnome, and I did that in W4, W2, and W1. The top of the mushroom, I have R59, R39, and I did have R32 or R22, but I didn't like it, so I just kept with the three colors, which, of course, I will always list all of my colors at the top of the screen for you if you ever want to pause and write them down. And then I have this cute little elephant here from Wild for You, colored in my cool grays, so C4, 3, and 2, and then R20 for the ears. Then I did go back up to the top and color that little butterfly, which is from the Toucan Do It stamp set. And I just picked a light green and a light blue. And then I remembered I did not color my leaves, so I just had a couple greens there to color the leaves in of my branch. And then I lined up all the coordinating dies, held them in place with a low tack tape, ran them through my die cut machine, and I'm just going to set them off on the side while I work on ink blending. I have the Slimline Tropical Leaves border die cut from Cilantro cardstock, and I'm starting by ink blending on, I think this was freshly cut grass, but it ended up being a little bit too light, so I am going to end up switching to jalapeno. Then once I have just kind of a quick layer down, it doesn't have to be perfect, and the bottom part is going to get cut off anyway. I just wanted to have some contrast, so this second color is Noble Fur. And once again, just starting from that bottom and blending up, and it's going to look very natural once I add it into the scene. So the other pieces for the card from the center picture window, I have the base, the inside where the window is going to go, and then the front cover as well, all cut from Cilantro cardstock. And I'm going to be doing a quick ink blend here on some of them. So this is where I switched to jalapeno ink from Lawn Fawn, and I'm starting at the top. Now this is the inside of my main card base for the center picture window, and I am bringing in that slimline border just to see how far down I need to go, which is about halfway. So just coming in with that blending brush, starting off of my cardstock, blending onto it about halfway down, and I'm doing all three pieces. So I'm doing the window, the front cover, and then the inside of my center picture window. Once I have that jalapeno down, I'm going to bring in that Noble Fur, and I will do all three of those pieces at once as well. This is once again just adding contrast to that, really kind of bringing out that jungle theme for my card. You can use any blending tool that you have on hand. I like to use the blending brushes for this because it helps me fade off into the color of the cardstock. Then once I have everything ink blended, I'm going to do some stenciling, and for that I'll be using the Tropical Leaves background stencil. Now this is a two-piece stencil, and I'm going to use my Make Art Station to do this because it is a little bit tricky. I want to make sure that this is very consistent across the background. So I'm picking the area of my stencil with the most leaves on it, and I also want to make sure that some of them are hanging off because you can see how some of them are cut off on the edge. And then I'm holding that stencil down on my cardstock with the magnets because this Make Art Station is magnetic. And I'm using a sponge dauber to apply Yeti pigment ink. And this looks really, really cool on a blended background. So I'm just kind of dabbing. I'm not going really hard with it because I don't want to catch any of those fine areas of the leaves. But I also need to bring in some Post-it tape and mask off the edge of the stencil. I don't want to get any harsh white lines because I still need to ink blend on that side. So then I can finish blending in those other leaves on the side, just kind of moving the magnets as I need to. And then I will take that Post-it tape off and I am going to shift this stencil. So I'm looking through the stencil, kind of seeing in the background where my other leaves are. You can see there's one leaf there on the very left-hand side edge that's kind of cut off. I'm going to mask that off because I want it to look consistent throughout the background. So I'm going to just mask that off and just ink blend on these two bigger leaves. So after I have all of these down, I'm going to let it sit for just about a minute or maybe 30 seconds, just kind of give that pigment ink time to dry. I wasn't very heavy, so it's not too wet, but I don't want to smear it. Then I can bring in the second layer of the stencil and I'm lining those leaves up in between what I already have ink blended down. Once again, kind of masking off any that look like they're an edge or on an edge, and also masking off that one right hand side. Then just quickly and lightly blending on some of that pigment ink. You could also just kind of do a dab and twist. You don't want to press too hard. Then once again, just kind of removing that Post-it tape, and I think it looks pretty good. So I was leaving that and I'm going to repeat those same steps for the center window part of my card and the front of my card. So this piece I believe is the front. I just picked the area of the stencil with the most leaves on it because then I don't have to do too much extra work and I don't need to even bring in that second stencil. Now this one I believe is the center window of my card for in the inside, and there were a few gaps. You probably won't notice them once I die cut out that center window, but I always like to just be thorough and make sure that I have enough coverage everywhere. So I'm going to pick this up and then I'm going to kind of turn it and shift it and place the stencil down where I need it to. Now I'm going to actually die cut out the window of my card. So I'm using the oval shape. I'm lining up the fold of my card with that open line in this particular die. And then once that's lined up, I'll hold that in place with some tape, run that through the die cut machine, and you can see that that perfectly cut out that oval window in the center of this card piece. Then I'm folding along all of those scored lines. So I'm going to fold these flaps over. I'm going to reinforce those folds with my bone folder. And I'll also fold that fold that's in the center as well. So just kind of folding that in. I'll take my base. I'm going to fold that in half with that pre-scored line. And then I'm going to take my slimline border and lay that down towards the bottom. Now this is a piece that is in the center picture window. This helps kind of create my fold where I need it to be. Instead of me folding it in the wrong spot or it's not going to work out, this creates that fold. So I just aligned that up. The T is at the bottom of the slimline tropical leaves. And then this just added that fold line in there, and I'm adding the tape runner to the back. Liquid glue would probably have been better. I think it sticks a little better, but this worked out really well too. And then I folded that up so these are all nice and even and it's flat on my card base. Now it's just a matter of adding all of my elements. So I'm trying to keep everything kind of symmetrical on each side. I'm going to have 3 things on the right and 3 things on the left, just adding a lot of them with a tape runner. I don't want to attach that center picture window just yet, but I'm using it as kind of a placeholder. So I have my mushrooms on the one side. I'm also going to add a cloud and a little butterfly to that left-hand side. I'm also going to place a cloud on the right to kind of keep that symmetrical in a way, kind of evening that out. And also my toucan and the branch, which I just trim off any excess that's hanging off. Now on one of the flaps, I'm adding liquid glue to that center picture window. And I kind of spread that out with my finger so it doesn't kind of ooze out of the side. And then I'm lining that fold of the center window with the fold of my base. And that helped me align that flap perfectly. And I just hold that down for a little bit to make sure it is secure. And then I can fold that window on top of itself with that other flap out. I'm going to bring in my liquid glue once again, and I'm going to smear that along with my finger just so I don't get any extra glue oozing out and making my whole entire card stick together. Then I can close the base of my card, hold that for a minute or two, and then everything is secure. Then I can finish adding in the rest of my elements. So I have my jaguar here that I'm just going to add a little bit of tape runner behind it. I also want to make sure when I'm applying the tape runner that I'm not putting it where it's going to stick to the center once this is closed. So just kind of tucking that down in the corner. And then I'm also going to apply the Toucan. And with the Toucan, I'm going to add a little dots of liquid glue. I just thought this was easier to get kind of more of a precise area of the adhesive. So I'm putting a little bit on the wing and a little bit on the tail. And then I'm going to hold that in place for just a moment while that adheres to the picture window. So that finishes off decorating the inside of my card, and now I'm going to work on the front cover. I have a sentiment here that I'm going to heat emboss, and this comes from the Wild for You stamp set. I'm going to kind of customize my front cover a little bit. So I lined these up on black licorice cardstock, prepped that with an anti-static powder tool, and then I'm stamping this down in the Yeti pigment ink. I'll stamp that down and I'm going to sprinkle on some white embossing powder. I really like using the Yeti pigment ink when I'm doing white embossing. I think it just helps fill in any little gaps. Once I tap off any excess of that powder, I'm going to melt this with my embossing gun. Normally after I heat emboss, I take a Swiffer cloth and just kind of buff off any of that excess powder. And I'm going to trim this out with one of the sentiment banner dies, whichever one fits. This one is the skinniest of the set. And I'm going to trim that out and then I will cut off the flags at the end. So this just helps make it really precise and gives me a really nice skinny banner for my words. And then off screen, I did die cut the word wild from some white pearlescent cardstock, and I used Kohl's ABCs to do that. I like how skinny that alphabet die is, and I laid them out on my front cover so I can get the placement right and make sure that they're spaced nicely. And then I'm going to use my liquid glue to attach those to the front cover, and I'm just kind of making them a little crooked. Some are up, some are down. The word wild, I thought having them kind of not lined up straight kind of went with the word wild. And then I'll bring in my skinny sentiments that I had trimmed out and I'm going to add them to the front with a tape runner. I'm also going to put these on here kind of crooked. So nothing is really straight on the front cover. I thought that went with kind of the wild scene that I have going on. So our sentiment reads, "Have a wild birthday." Then I'll attach some tape runner to the back of that and attach this to the front cover of my center picture window card. And that will finish off the card. So now we have the sentiment on the front and this really fun jungle scene on the inside. You could also add a sentiment to the inside, or if you wanted to write a special note, I would put that probably on the back of my card. That'll finish off the entire center picture window card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye.